everyone. Welcome back to latest episode of the Precursive podcast. This is very unusual because it's a sunny Monday morning in London. And normally I'm doing these shows when it's someone who's based in the United States or Canada late at night. And it's dark, kind of miserable. But this is really refreshing. And I'm delighted to be joined by my new friend that I met on the internet, based in Toronto, Piyush Agrawal. Welcome, sir. How are you?
Good. Thank you for having me on the show, Jonathan.
Good stuff. Good stuff. And you are over in your hometown in India at the moment.
Yes, I am. I just landed today in Pune, India.
Great. Get to see some of the family then?
Yeah, spent some time with friends, family. We had a great offsite for Instabase just last week. So, yeah.
Oh, nice. Nice. In India?
Yes, in Bangalore. Out in Bangalore, we have a wonderful office and a wonderful team there.
Oh, very good. Excellent. Good stuff. So get to combine a bit of work travel with going home. That helps with the plane expenses. Love it. Cool. Well, give us a little bit. You're currently the global head of PS at Instabase. So give us a little bit of background on who's Instabase, scope of your role, and a little bit about your career, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been working in tech for about 15 years now. I started off as a software developer way back when. And slowly been exploring newer and newer roles. I've even done roles like business analyst for a bit. I've worked with pretty much most of the top tier banks across the UK, the US, Canada. I even did a gig as a consultant with one of the top 4 consulting firms in the world.
Deloitte.
I'm not going to name them.
All right.
But yes, it was Deloitte.
It starts with a D. It's all right.
It was a great experience working with them. I learned a lot. And, most recently, I've been working with Instabase for close to 3 years now. I do head the professional services organization, which includes our solution engineering team that works in, custom solutions built for our customers, data operations, back office team, and a delivery engagement team as well.
Cool.
And
so you've got pre-sales under you?
Not pre-sales. We do only post-sales. The delivery engagement is more around helping project management, project delivery as well.
Nice. Okay, great. The background's very interesting and relevant, coming from that sort of engineering background, then working in banking, then consulting, and then being in a technology provider into financial services. I think that mix of skills and experience, I would imagine, has prepared you well for the current role.
Yes, it has. It's been actually what's happened with consulting is it's given me access to a lot more customers, a lot more client interactions, and allowed me to explore the nuances of how things could differ from one client to the other, or even within a client from one engagement to the other.
Yeah. I also think one of the things that consultants do well is they don't forget the marketing element of, marketing the project post-contract signature. They're good at that stakeholder management and engagement. And we're going to talk about delivery methodologies later on, so we might come back to that. But I think it's been really interesting getting to know you via the Services Delivery Alliance network. And I think one of the things as we go into this, well, we're in 2024, which if you look at the movie timelines, Skynet should have taken over the world, etc. by now. What's your take initially on like the state of services, the state of professional services in 2024? What's your perspective?
I think now more than ever, professional services plays a very key part in building the ecosystem for customers. So what I mean by that is, sure, we have a great number of tools and access to a great number of tools and technologies that weren't available in the past. But what does that help, and how does that help our customers actually solve their problems on a day-to-day basis? I think that has become the key focus. So we could have access to whether it's OpenAI or any other number of LLM tools out there, but how does that actually fit into building this specific problem-solving machine for your organization? That has become key. And we've started solving much, much more complex problems than we could in the past. And I think this is where it's a little bit of education for our customers, teaching them how to use these tools and help them explore these new technologies and fit them into their business is going to be very valuable in the upcoming year.
Yeah, because I had your former CCO on this podcast years ago, and I know that you guys have leaned in pretty heavily into AI and providing AI based solutions, right? In your organization.
Yeah, yeah. We are intelligent automation, and that could come in
Yeah.
many shapes and forms. We work with several of the top organizations in the world, and definitely the top 5 banks in the US.
Mhm.
But it's not restricted to just one industry. We believe that wherever there's a document understanding problem, our tool and our platform is able to solve that. And what we sort of pride ourselves on is taking on the challenge to solve the more complex part of those document understanding problems, not the simpler or the more like the passport problems and the ones that are very structured documents. We look at more of the unstructured and complex documents.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I think there's a number of intelligent automation solutions around various business processes, industries, and these types of things. One of the things that I really want to focus on in this podcast this season is around intelligent services and the need for intelligent services, because professional services historically, I think, is a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and maybe not enough like underlying intelligence to refine how we deliver ongoing value to clients. I think when you think about the professional services organization at the moment, most of them that I talk to are, it's a bit of a cliched phrase, but it's true, like on the hook for doing more with less, or at least
Uh,
the same, right? So how should PS seek to get smarter in that environment?
I think you just touched upon it, Jonathan, as well. Is like, I mean, we do sell technology, we do sell these great AI and automation tools, but the PS organizations also need to evolve and start utilizing some of these tools. So whether it's automating project plan creation, I know Precursive has a great way of doing that, and I was lucky to get a demonstration of that. We need to figure out what are the optimized op models that we have essentially in place to look at the 20, 30, 50, 100 customers that you have and figure out what are the common threads and where should you look at the maturity in optimizing for these. So some customers might be at a maturity level 0 and therefore need like very hands-on delivery, versus some might be more matured in phase 2 and 3, where you almost have to give them a more design architecture approach. So you need to firstly optimize and understand what is your customer base, what are the key what are the key phases that you need to deliver and build your SKUs according to that. And then finally look at your internal processes, understand operationally how can you be more efficient through automation, through streamlining processes, and having a very clear op model defined internally for your team as well.
I like that. No, I like that. Like, I like the fact that you started from the customer base and the segmentation, like sort of backing into the SKUs, because I think a common misstep is sort of to over focus on the SKU itself. It's like, okay, we're going to now sell, gold, silver, bronze packages. And it's like, well, actually, if you haven't done the necessary sort of segmentation of the clients, both in terms of sort of size, maturity, and consumption of services already, it's very difficult to build the right sort of menu of offerings. And therefore, you either build things that clients don't want and don't sell, or you build too many and it becomes sort of this process of rationalization over time. So I think that kind of ordering of things that you highlighted, when you think about like the operating model for a moment, then like data and reporting and KPIs are all important. What are some of the insights that you look for as a leader in your organization that informs you about either what's going on or where areas could be improved?
Yeah, absolutely. I this one part which I just want to address through this question as well,
Mm,
touching on the previous
go
segment of
for it.
SKUs. I'll use the data which talks about like where is my team spending most time. So
Yep.
we've broken out our time tracking into several buckets, whether it's like project scoping, which is your pre-project delivery work. In project delivery, you have several nuances like, okay, there's design, there's architecture, there's actual solution building, which we have a number of steps on. We have QA processes, we have post-implementation support and hypercare. We have things that might happen during an upgrade or a migration. That's our product warranty. And also like, any other production issues that might come up and ask us to spend time. What that helps me to understand through all that reporting is, hey, I have to understand how my customers matured as well as how the industry is maturing. So are my customers asking me to spend more time in design and like evolve the design phase and understand the end-to-end process? Or are they more focused on, hey, I need a very good QA process? Or do I need, or am I having far too many issues post-production deployment? Once I know that, I'm able to ascertain like what are the SKUs as well, right? Like, so the SKUs that I mentioned, they are a sort of maturing model each time. Like every year, we might relook at them and say, hey, are these still valid? Do we need to tweak them? And if we do tweak and add something to a certain package, we make sure that our customers that have bought it also can avail of that, that can benefit from that little bit. Furthermore, what this reporting helps me to do is like staff up my team correctly and appropriately, so the right skill set for it. I'm able to inform my leadership, my engineering counterparts on like, hey, whether there are things broken and we need to go and reevaluate certain areas. I'm able to go and talk to my sales and say, hey, these things have gone really, really well. They finished either on time or maybe even a touch before time. You might want to take this success story and this metric out to other customers in a similar place and showcase that. So I
Yep.
use it in different ways as well. And then like finally for my internal team, which is more personally, my personal goal is to look at how they're utilizing their time. Are they getting time off? Are they able to find time to upskill and learn new things, or are they just busy with project work? And then I can like figure out how do we reduce utilization from customer engagements to give them more time to explore new ideas.
Love it. Love it. I think there's a few insights in there. One is, I think often time tracking, like nobody likes doing a timesheet. No one likes tracking their time, right? Let's just be honest. I don't. And we've got quite an easy tool for it. But I think it's the usefulness of that data, as you say, to inform the go forward. And that's the bit which is should really be well understood by if you're a services leader, or if you're growing in a services organization, you're a manager listening to this, is like time management. It helps you understand where time is being spent to inform how you plan or how you deliver. So you can identify bottlenecks, as you've highlighted. I think
I have a great resource manager who's helped me build this maturity. So I all my credit goes to her hard work across a good 6 months.
yeah, I mean, but that it's the heartbeat of an RMO. Like a resource management starts with time management. A few years ago, a gentleman who is now CCO of another software company, like he taught me that. He's like, you're thinking about scheduling stuff. You need to first know and understand how you're spending your time before you can refine how you do things going forward. I like how you highlight the success story in sales. I think that there is an opportunity, as we talk about some delivery topics in a moment. There's an opportunity for services, if they can, within a delivery, to, when things are going well or when they've gone well, for the PM or the architect or whomever it is to say, hey, with the customer, can we just record a little, story here about why this has gone well, what we did well, what you've learned, what the initial value moment is. We sort of wait until after the fact, even if we couldn't use that publicly. If you started to have a bank of those that grew, that you just recorded, drop it in Slack or Teams or an email to your sales organization. It's like, here's hearing from the customer. I think that needs to sort of go into these like delivery methodologies a little bit more in a more systematic way. Do you do something that's systematized, or is it ad hoc at the moment?
Yeah, we do have a great customer success team and a
Right.
great customer success leader. What we do is usually we do have the general cadences defined at the start of a project. So those include your, project cadences, your
Yep.
executive vehicle sort of meetings, and then, finally a business review of it every quarter. Now, those become imperatively more important as the project matures because your focus at the start is on the project cadences. The quarterly meetings and the steer codes are sort of like to remove blockers and so on. But as the project comes to delivered state, you almost have these forums to understand the customer sentiment, how things have gone, have they actually achieved the goals that they signed up for? And then further explore these opportunities to either have references into new business lines or use them to just get good learnings, right? Like, okay, Did we engage with you well? Did we get your requirements up front? Did we train your people appropriately? So it gives you a good insight into that. We seldom don't record it, but that's a great idea. I think I'm gonna probably steal that one from you,
Feel that
Jonathan.
one. But you know what it is I've started asking for, so when we do a playback, right, of the solution for our clients, we record it. And so I started asking the architects, like, send us it internally, because there's always like 80-90% of it is always the same, right, of our solution. And then
Yeah.
there's these little things that they're doing which are like super cool, right? So it's, and I started sort of like, that was the initial ideation of like, how do we get more like of the, what is the actual solution that we've built after we've sold it and delivered it really look like? And then I want to go a level further than that, particularly in my organization, about this, about and lessening the burden for CS or product marketing, and making services a little bit more of the heroes, to be honest with you. So that's kind of the mentality. Now, I think one of the key, a second key theme for this year is really going to be around how you can productize services for predictable revenue, right? You've already talked about the importance of the SKUs. And I think as services organizations grow, they kind of mature from this, you know, when they're slightly smaller, where it's just, let's get stuff implemented. Maybe it's a little bit technical in nature. It's not as professionalized. But there comes a point in time when you have to be a well-run business within a business. And therefore, there is kind of this commercial engine to PS that needs to be there and function. So, you know, given that most organizations are on the hook for more revenue or margin, kind of how do you think about that commercialization of PS?
Yeah, the main thing with commercialization is it's not just a monetary transaction, right? As I alluded earlier, I truly believe that you need to look out for what is important to your customer. What is it that they need at that point in time to increase their success ratio? So yes, the focus initially is on implementation, but in parallel to implementation, you always want to see how you can train your customer to do better, right? Whether it's through academy courses, whether it's through in-person training, whether it's through recorded sessions and webinars, or whether it's like we want to do pair programming. It couldn't come in a number of shapes and forms. You always want to encourage your customer to do well. However, as your implementation comes to a close, your touch points move more towards the post sales, like the customer success aspect, or back to a sales motion. At that point, what I look at, how do you commercialize this, is understanding, okay, where exactly can I add the next piece of value? Is it a support mechanism? Do they have a plan to add new features themselves? Are they going to just continue and have no more changes to this? Or are they using the platform that we provide them to go and build things themselves? So I think it is that human aspect before you get into the commercial numbers, to understand how you're going to make your customer successful. And the second part on the internal front is I'm actually quite lucky. I work with a great sales team and great sales leadership that understand the value of professional services. But you do need to make sure that you are able to articulate your value across the organization, not just to sales leadership, but even to account executives and the people on the ground doing the sales, so that they are able to articulate it to their customer. And then I guess the last thing is not to be afraid to get into those conversations with your customer, to first understand the value and then understand where you can invest where you're happy to make an investment, and where you can actually commercialize it appropriately.
Yeah. Well, I like how it's outside in, right? So it's customer first. Again, I think that's key, because if you think about that formula that you've just described, it's like, you know, customer value drives success, which in turn gives you a better relationship with your sales organization. Because I can't imagine that strong relationship and that mutual respect it's just automatically there. I would imagine that's something that's been nurtured and, you know, watered over time.
Yeah, absolutely. We needed to showcase our success as well, because the sales team has gone and put in a lot of effort to complete the transaction. But we need to showcase that, hey, whatever you've sold, we're able to implement it and make that a piece of work that was sold to them an actual reality, and drive that business benefit. And over a period of time, we've been able to do that repeatably and in the same fashion, so that they're able to go and understand that, hey, this is how professional services organizations work.
Yeah, I mean, the power of your value proposition and your brand internally lives or dies on when a new AE joins a team and they go, "How's PS?" And if they go, "Yeah, they're rock stars," like they're like, "Oh, great. Yeah, awesome."
Yeah.
Right? Like that's what ultimately you're looking for, is a bunch of AEs telling their peers, our colleagues over there, they're really great. They don't block us, they enable us, they deliver well, but we've got to work with them in this way.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't have articulated it better than that.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Well, the days of the lone wolf are over. I think it's all about, got to have team selling. You can't have some, liability out there giving away PS or these types of things, because it all ends in disaster. So we talked a little bit in the first part about SKUs. So I want to explore then the role. Let's just double click on the role of what I call services architecture. Now, others might call it your offerings, your various different packages. I like the phrase, like the architecture. What role does that play in growing revenue?
Oh, I think that is just very central to how you define your SKUs and how do you define your offerings, right? Like your one SKU might be just heavily focused on developers only and maybe one architect. And like, you're sending almost like a lot of people to solve the problem, one of whom is an architect. Another SKU, which is very key or very important, is having just an architecture focused like offering. Like I'm saying that,
Yeah.
okay, I'm going to give you an architect that not only understands my platform, but is going to help you design an overall workflow, like an end-to-end architecture review for you. And they should be sitting, I mean, the end goal or the ideal state is they sit on your design review board and are able to understand every single project that comes into that line of business. Not too many organizations will let an external vendor do that, but we've had some good success where a lot of customers do come back and ask, hey, can we run this entire flow by you, see how it integrates with Instabase, or how does this integrate with the technology? Do you think that there's a way that your tool and your platform could be integrated within this flow? That's another one. Another one is pure play business advisory services in a way. So we're looking at it and saying, okay, how are you going to operationalize this entire process, which is specific to the technology that we offer, but how does this actually work in terms of upstream utilization, or what benefit am I getting? Am I able to get more out of a single set of resources, whether I'm able to get them to do more, or am I able to process faster? How am I actually translating this entire solution into dollar value? So we have a set of SKUs that you need to have that not only cater to your tech side of things, but also to your business side, because even coming back to your previous phrase, it's not hunting alone, it's hunting together. Tech and business need to be aligned. So you need to have a service offering for both sides of the house.
Nice. Like that. Like that. Yeah, I'd really think if you can make this work, because your architects are typically in high demand, right? They're either needed for your highly complex programs, they're needed maybe just for your standard programs, given the complexity of what you sell, what we sell. But as you stated, like this, the sort of embedding them across multiple customers, I think is the really interesting recurring revenue offering, right? Because and also that's a really interesting role, almost similar, like you said, to when you talked about consulting at the beginning, where you get to see multiple clients and different use cases and these types of things. I think it's a really, I think there's a big linkage between how well your offerings are designed and actually your staff retention, because it just gives you this variety, it gives you this creativity, and it means that one of the tough things in services, I think, is like career paths, right? It's not, if you're a PM, you might become a senior PM, you might go into PMO, you could go into customer success, but it's not always super obvious about like where you can go in your career. And I just think that there's this interesting linkage between employee engagement and the services offerings. Is that something that you've come across at all?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first thing that you said is, yes, we need to have these SKUs or these offerings or these roles in a very repeatable and recurring as a revenue format, right? So your customers are able to see that, hey, this is something you've done before, that instills confidence, and therefore they're happy to like do it in a recurring manner in some slight modification over a period of time. When it comes to internal resources, yes, they absolutely love the different challenges that are thrown at them, whether it's from a number of customers or it's a number of problem statements that they see, and that's what helps them grow. And they also start refining their skills, right? Like someone who's a developer may become a senior developer to become an architect and move so on, right? Like they're able to then contribute not only to customer engagements, but also towards our product and have a strong point of view on how the product is designed and where customers are commonly seeing challenges. Similarly, PMs will grow into actually leading multiple engagements or being able to manage really complex customers. And it's not one single project. They're not looking at it as a, hey, like I just need to solve your project. I need to understand how does your delivery methodology work and how do we improve that across the board. So whether it's change management, whether it's release management, they may be able to build a point of view there and provide that expertise to a customer. So in a right, they would also become architects or SMEs in that space.
Yep, got it. And we're going to go into the delivery methodology in a moment. Just final thing then. So going back to the sales partnership. So you've been in the business now over 2.5 years, current role for about a year. If you had a time machine, and I watched Back to the Future over the weekend. So if you had a DeLorean to go back in time, what would you do differently, or what have been some of your learnings with regards to sales enablement and that partnership with sales?
I would have started earlier, quite honestly. The one thing I regret is not doing it early enough. And also building collateral that speaks to the capability, right? We all try our best. We all try to prove success. But I think providing it in a very digestible format to sales leadership, to sales, whether it's AEs or whether it's sales reps, you need to provide it to them in a very digestible way. And constantly not relying on what you did in the past, but constantly proving that, hey, we are still capable of doing this. This is where we are. These are the challenges and where we need their help as well. So when there's a problem that happens at an account, the one thing we've started doing more recently is engaging even our sales counterparts so that they understand if they're having a parallel conversation or if they want to know about the account that they sold because they are very attached to it, at least they know what's happening, where the roadblocks are, and maybe some of their relationships can help us get unblocked or at least present the problem statement to their stakeholders.
Yep. No, I like all of that. Start earlier, work on your messaging and your collateral, and keep moving forward. Love it. Cool. Good. All right. So repeatable delivery, right, is our last section, as it were. And I've inserted that word deliberately because I think everyone is aspiring for a degree of repeatability, and then the reality hits on every project because it's always different. But I mean, how have you approached refining your delivery methodology over the last years in order to accelerate that mystical time to value, or at least time to launch?
Yeah, so a couple of things that we focused on was we bought in delivery engagement expertise. And the reason is we avoid calling it project management because it's so much more than just running a project. It is about engaging your customers from an end-to-end delivery perspective, understanding what really matters to them, helping explain what could go wrong as well, or what could go right and what has worked in the past. So delivery engagement has been a key strength that has helped us improve our process. They've given us that repeatable framework to go in with, hey, this is a requirements gathering document, or this is how we build project plans. This is how we put communications together. This is your status reporting. So it's all about building that repeatable package of documents that does not change unless a customer really insists on a change. And even so, we present it as one package to say, this has worked in the past. Would you like us to continue, or do you have something different? The other thing that we've done is understanding the roles on an engagement and basically building out our RACI almost. So we have a number of individuals on an account, whether it's from customer success, whether it's from our solution engineering team, delivery engagement. So we wanted to make sure that everyone has a clearly defined role and therefore can run their own stream of work and aid the other person versus being like a little bit of a conflict or versus not knowing who's picking up a certain set of work. That has helped us accelerate our delivery as well as making sure that's a repeatable process. And finally, it is like the people that we have, right? Investing in understanding through whether it's retros, like every project has a retro at the end to understand, well, what really went well, what didn't go well, how can we take those repeatable processes, build out our knowledge base through Confluence, and showcase both the technical and non-technical learnings from an engagement. And that I think the last one has gone significantly well to enable us to sort of go faster.
Yep. So my question around the delivery engagement then is, so if you're taking a project manager, let's say, or someone's joined your organization as a PM, how do you sheep dip them, if you will, to upskill them to become more of a delivery engagement manager? Is there a competency framework that you use, and how does that work?
Yeah. So firstly, we have a very small and mighty team. So we
Yep.
haven't really spent too much effort doing that. We just had really great people join us. But
Yep.
what we see as, or what I personally see as a difference between just a project manager and a delivery manager is the willingness to invest time and, to be fair, be more dangerous on a project, right? So there's no limitation of, hey, I will only go and get status updates. I encourage them to go and work with customers to say, hey, okay, can you show me a day in the life of, for example, or
Yep.
let's build out our end-to-end process together so that although it's not our work, but it'll help you understand how to operationalize this with the ops team later. Or let's think about how does your UAT or an SIT process work with all your number of vendors. So we help encourage them to step out of their regular role and think about this from a customer's perspective to deliver it end to end. Like almost like thinking, if you were at the customer end, what are the things that you would be concerned about?
Okay, interesting. And then so going back then to this idea of repeatability, then have the packages that you've designed played an important role in creating a more consistent onboarding experience for clients?
They have to a great extent. I think this year is going to be more of that testing because a lot of our customers up until last year were in that maturity level 0. Now we've moved them to level 1 and 2 across the board. Now looking at them and saying, hey, okay, whether is an office hours package good enough for you, or do you need more of a consultative approach where we have someone dedicated X number of hours per week, or do you need someone who comes in just does design work with you or code review work with you or pure programming? Like those kind of packages are going to be tested through pretty much this next fiscal.
Yeah.
And especially with more of the advent of LLM and AI-based tools, it'd be interesting to see what are the things that we could use to even leverage those or augment our SKUs with the offerings that we have.
Yeah, I think you can't be too one-dimensional when you think about these packages, because I think too often you're going to fall into the trap of, oh, well, it's this level of ARR or ACV, and therefore it's this package, and with not the necessary thought put into the level of maturity for the customer. Because like you say, if you're operating with a cohort of customers who are at a low level of maturity, it's gonna be, and you're taking them from 0 to 1, that might be a very heavy lift for them and for you, and therefore you're going to have a custom program, unfortunately, for each client. But where you're going to then is, once you've got them to 1, then your services organization can bring in more scalable and repeatable services that help them to optimize their usage or further their usage, or maybe lead into other products or solutions. Because I think the other thing that shouldn't be underappreciated is just user churn, right? You've got people in your client base who are leaving their job and going elsewhere, might be 20%, 10-20% during a year. And therefore, those services offerings should not just be about kind of like onboarding new clients, but onboarding new users.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's literally all of the above. I mean,
Mm.
both aspects of it is key. Even onboarding for us is such an integral part. So we now go in with a standard sort of a handshake document and say, okay, hey, these are the ways we want to work with you. Some customers even prefer, like, for example, email over Slack, right? Or they don't like async comms. They want everything on a phone call. So understanding all those pieces bring the first level of maturity. Once you have that, or they might have set up a COE or a functional team there, we then say, hey, by the way, these are all the tools we use to go deliver. You can use some or all of them to enable or accelerate your delivery. We will provide you both SME knowledge on delivery practices as well as SME knowledge on the product and technical aspects. So we do offer those kind of SKUs together, but we aren't rigid. Like we give some flexibility based on even level 1 and 2, whether they've had new people join or just old people needing a refresher.
Right. Now, we maybe should have started this at the beginning, but finally, so we've talked a little bit about the methodology, the importance of roles and responsibilities, and that sort of sits also, though, underneath kind of overall org design. So as you think about like the ultimate goal is to drive, customer success for clients and do that as quickly and efficiently as possible. And if you work back from that, then there's a method of how you do things in that initial engagement, to use your term. And then you've got the design. So how does that, it's the football manager or the soccer manager and how he sets up the team to play on the pitch. So what is the org design's role, or have you seen the org design's role being in optimizing of services delivery?
Again, very key aspect of it, right? Like you work with your customer firstly to understand how their organization is set up, right? Are they going to be relying on resources that are internal to their team, or are they going to be borrowing resources from a sort of central pool of talent, right? I know certain organizations have a central delivery practice, for example. So they borrow a project manager as needed, or they borrow a developer as needed from their functional line of business. So first thing is understanding your customers' organizational need. And then we've designed 2 or 3 ways that you can actually work with them. If it's a COE setup for like role-based from our end and from their end. So it's, an investment from them. Some of them are functional team members. So we say, okay, hey, we'll pair you up with somebody else and one trainer for 5 individuals and so on. So understanding how you want to like segment those teams, what is their technical capability, what is their functional knowledge. You almost build your pod structures or you build a flat structure. You need to know that organizational delivery for the success. Because if I go and tell them that, hey, you should do it only this way, but that's not how the organization is used to it, I will not only spend a lot of time explaining and teaching it to them, they also may not be comfortable or be set up for success at the end of it. And that's not a great experience.
No, my mind immediately didn't go to, okay, well, what's the org structure of my customer? But I think that's the first step in understanding how you would structure your own team to optimize delivery of services, because you understand the org structure, like you say, the levels of maturity, what resources do they have. Um,
Yeah.
that resource augmentation piece is absolutely key, I think, these days.
Yeah, and it's also skill based, right? Like if you look at today's world, like we didn't think of it last year, but this year we're almost thinking of, okay, maybe your team needs a specific set of very technical resources that are Python developers, for example, and then a certain set of people that are prompt engineers, and a certain set of people that can build test automation, and some people who can do manual testing. So like those kind of role based organizations also need to be set up. Like that also fits into your org design. And that's a bit nuanced, and obviously like every company and every organization is going to do it far differently, similar to some following agile and some following waterfall or some following scaled agile, right? So we do think of all these things, or we do that kind of discovery at the start of an engagement before proposing an org design to them on how we should be working.
Cool. Awesome. Piyush, thank you ever so much for taking the time and preparing. Really great episode. Lots of really, really good learnings there. I mean, I think the way at the beginning that you think about like how do you bring this ecosystem of value to your clients is I think really important. I think the segmenting the customers and then the use cases and then backing into the offering design from there, and then also having that customer first mindset around commercialization. I mean, everything that you've talked about, you work customer first, which is really great. So thank you, sir. Enjoyed it?
Yeah, no, thank you, Jonathan. I appreciate it. And quite honestly, the SDA has been one of the best things I've had in 2023 professionally. So thank you for the opportunity to be participating in that.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. Yeah. For listeners, that's the servicesdeliveryalliance.com. It's a network of services leaders that we set up in end of 2022, kind of on a whim. And it's now grown to more than 100 companies participating, with great folks like Piyush in it from all over the world. So no, that's really nice to hear. It's one of the favorite parts of my job. Building that it actually comes from my old job before Precursive, which was I worked for this company, CEB, and it was this member-based model. So they called it member-based. It was actually subscription. And it was basically pretty straightforward. It was like, if you're in a functional role, so head of services, might be CFO, might be CMO, head of sales, head of CS, like once your companies grow to a certain size and complexity, everyone's got the same problems. Doesn't matter what kind of industries you serve or that you're in. So I think taking that, maybe it was a bit fortuitous that I kind of worked somewhere like that prior to Precursive, because I was like, you could go out and waste a bunch of time on the internet doing Google searches or spending a load of money on consultants, or you could just talk to all the people that do your job elsewhere. So yeah.
And I think I said this in my first meeting with you. It's about like 20 hours of reading and about 1 hour of just attending one of these sessions. So
Yeah. Yeah.
once again, thank you. It's a great forum, and yeah, very highly recommended. So
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Awesome. Thank you, sir. Have a good day.
thank you. You too.